I have a Brother machine marked Coronado Duchess. The model number is like 4015B or something. It's on the manual, not on the machine itself. This is a lot like a Charger 651 and a lot of machines. The zigzag flipper is completely loose, and you can see that the pointer is stuck on 5, but when I wiggle the arm here, nothing happens. These nuts at least are in place, so I'm gonna have to remove this control panel to get in and see if I can fix this dial. To do that, I need to start with the reverse button. There's a set screw that I have already removed that goes in the side of this reverse button. This reverse button is pot metal, so it may be rotted out and it could be stuck on there. And there's a screw hole, or there's an access hole in the side of this dial. So you have to hold the button in, align the set screw, and then loosen it like so to get the reverse button to come off. So the reverse button out of the way means that I can take these 2 small screws out and get the length dial out of the way. And I'm going to make sure, like, part of the reason I removed these knobs is if you remember that other, I think it was the Charger, one of those Brother machines, the stitch length was not working very well, and it was because we had pot metal rot in here. So I want to make sure and remove that knob to inspect this before we go trying to remove the control panel here and this trim piece. Because if there's something wrong behind that knob, we need to spot it before we just go prying on this trim. Trim is held on with 3 different pieces, and then it should come off. Just like so. And now we've got access to that red button and the back side of the control here, and that's what's happened. This spinny bit has come unlocked from our indicator and our stoppers. So, alright, I'm gonna set this up and move it, and then get this flipper set back on. And there's a washer that lives behind this control panel. This spring washer helps keep the length selection. That's the friction for the length selection. Right. So this knob is loose, which is how it was able to slip backwards out of this piece here. Got the spring, and that's the spring that does the return on the knob. And this is in place, and now I'm going to grab a the knob is not like slipping back onto the post, so I'm going to get a clamp, and I'm going to carefully press the knob back down onto the post where it belongs. And then we'll adjust it and put the set screw back in, because there was a loose set screw in the knob. Right. With that pin back in place, I can slide, and the indicator moves, and these stoppers move. So I'll get my clamp, press this knob back down in place, and then put the set screw on. It's hard to see, but I have the knob pressed on, and I've set it so that the flapper matches the pin, and then on the control it's going to look real nice. One last note, the stoppers for the zigzag travel have those knurled nuts or knurled thumb screws on the front, but you see how they're just a threaded square block on the back here. So if you loosen these more than enough for them to move, if you take those screws out, that threaded block is going to end up falling off the track and falling down in the machine or getting lost. So when you're working on these, make sure that you don't, or using it, don't remove those, don't remove these knurled screws, because you'll end up losing the stop nuts on the back. To reassemble this, the pin on the back side here just goes and pushes on the zigzag lever here, so make sure your flipper is set for 0, and then we've got that friction washer that was in here that we need to make sure and remember and I'm just going to check behind here. Oh, alright. Yeah. Make sure that our friction washer is on there. And I could have left the main length dial on this trim piece, but again, I wanted to take it out to check it, because I had that other one that was seized, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any issues with that. I'll get these trim screws back in. Dial here. Well, that's the issue. I have to take this off to put the dial back together. So there's tension from that spring, and that means that the screws that hold this dial in are not long enough to grab the back plate. So, well, since I have to do all that, I'm gonna take a minute to clean some of these parts, and then we'll take this off and I'll put that length dial back on before we put the cover back in. The back side of this knob has a notch for a ring to go on for the dial, and then with the notch set in the dial, it goes from 0 to 4, and then on the back side here is the spring that tensions everything. And then this washer with the square cut to drive the length notch is supposed to be assembled so that the notch is opposite of the numbers. So we've got 2 here, and then the slot opposite the 2. And I've got to be able to hold all that together and compress that spring against the little washer so that these screws can reach into the threads. And then once one is in, the other side get our tiny screw in. There we go. There we are. Alright, now this control panel is ready to set on, and the notch here is going to go into the slot on the control for the stitch length that is still in the machine. Now with the panel assembled, got the slot on the thing there, and if you don't have it lined up, you can always just turn the dial until the tab on that washer goes in the slot. Like I said, if you remember that Charger 651, I had to get this apart to deal with the corrosion that seized the control up. So I wanted to take that off before I tried to remove the control panel, because I certainly want to make sure that there's no surprise corrosion behind any of this stuff. Alright, I'm going to put those screws in, and then we'll get the reverse button installed. Tiny set screw on the reverse button. The reverse button spins, so it doesn't actually matter which way that set screw faces. There's a hole in the side of the main dial here, so we just have to line the set screw up with the hole and then hold it partially down until I'm going to double check that, because it can be hard to peer through that hole with the camera on the side here. The hand wheel's off, and when I removed the hand wheel, I discovered that this hand wheel is aluminum. So what happened is the aluminum and the steel, dissimilar metals, can have an electrolytic reaction and corrode each other. And that is how batteries work, actually. You just get 2 different kinds of metal and a little bit of acid, and they corrode each other to make a battery. So in order to try and prevent the 2 metals from getting in contact or having an opportunity for anything to get between them to conduct, I'm actually going to use my super lube and grease this now. And of course the key is to make sure that the grease gets really spread around in there, and hopefully that will create a thick enough barrier for the metals that they won't come in contact with each other immediately. Go. The ear is there. The screw landed about there. Let's see if we can, if this works. Yeah, I think that'll work. Unfortunately, since the grease is a bit thicker than oil, it may not release nearly or about as nicely. But and then we'll throw our belt on here. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Just get a little bit. A little less tension on there. We'll flip it. See if we get better action. Alright, flipping that ear did. Allow the full there. Alright. I think that'll do. And the motor's running. The motor was a bit stiff on this, but a little bit of oil and that cleared right up. Alright, getting the hook back in. Just like all the other Class 15 machines. There's the driver and then the hook, two halves to make a whole circle. This machine has the race hinged on the bottom here, so if you're lifting it up and around and flopping it about with the race cover open, you end up jamming around on this screw here, and then that just snugs up. And our drop of oil in the hook race. This machine is just like the 651 Charger for threading, so I'll update the threading video for the 651 to include this, and then we'll get some stitch testing done.